Hello, and thanks for slipping some time with me today. And look who's back. This is a legendary DSMer's last car he had. Unfortunately, he passed away from a tragic accident that happened. It wasn't his fault. And this was his last car that I've done a bit of a series on, doing some work on it in the past. Incidentally, because the previous owner was Kurt Brown, so look that up. By the way, that's the guy's name. If you in the DSM community to know the history, know how legendary he is, especially for how well he could actually port the heads on these cars. And we call this Pitts because he was from Pittsburgh. PITTS is kind of the short form of it we use, and we thought it was just appropriate because it spends time in the pits because we do a lot of stuff with it. So in this episode, I'm going to be changing the wideband sensor and gauge on it and connecting it to the tuning software through the ECU. And I thought it'd be good just to show you that, what takes place, how to do the install, some tips and tricks on it, and take you along that and show you some of the setup and some of the, maybe the do's and don'ts. I don't know if they'll be in there. We'll see how it goes. But let's just get going and show you that right now. So this is the wideband that I'm putting in, or not actually, it's over there, but this is the box anyway. And I'm putting in an X Series UEGO gauge, and this is actually the old one that was in it. The premise is the same, the kind of how to put them in. So you have your sensor you got to put in, and you put that, I'll show you in the downpipe typically, and how far away and on an angle, and I'll show you a bit of that. And there's the gauge, and then of course there's the wiring, and the wiring's a little different, and I'll show you on the other one, and I'll show you that. But basically that's what I'm going to install, and then we're going to tap also into the ECU to do some logging as well, and there's a extra wire for that on this one and the one I'm putting in. So there's the O2 sensor that I have in the downpipe. And typically you want it a couple feet away from the collector of the manifold or tubular headers or whatever you got, because there can be, like in there's kind of, it swirls, and you just want to make sure it's a nice stream that it gets into, and that's why you want to put it downstream a little bit by a couple feet. Highly recommended anyway. And you put it on an angle, and the reason you do that is so it doesn't sit in water, because condensation does happen in exhaust. There's a little water vapor that comes in, and you don't want that sensor corroding or getting a lot of condensation, as well as any carbon deposits, etc., that can kind of cloud it up. So that just keeps it a lot cleaner and lasts longer if you put it at an angle. I got it from near the top on an angle. They say at least 10 degrees here. It says installed greater than 10 degrees. So basically anywhere up there will be fine. Just don't have it in the bottom like that. And that's where this one's installed. Just to show you what it looks like from underneath, you can see it up there. Basically it's coming from the O2 housing down to the downpipe. And there's maybe 2.5 feet or something like that. And it's collecting it, and that way there's be not a lot of pressure in here as well, which is ideal. The gases will be nice and flowing freely and not probably swirling around, which they could be up in there. And obviously you can see that angle that I talked about where I've got it set up. This wideband sensor has a number of wires coming from it. I'm not going to use all of them. You can kind of see the diagram here, but I'm only interested in using obviously the 12 volt switched, the black ground, so that's basically power to it. I'm not going to use the serial input, the blue wire. I'm going to use the white analog wire. The brown analog negative wire, just so you know what that is, that should go to the same reference point as your ground for whatever is doing the logging. In this particular case, it's going to be the ECU of the car, and that is the sensor input. So I want to make sure that that ground is exactly the same. So that is going to be going to the ECU, which in this car is tucked in behind there. I'll kind of show you. It's in there. I don't know if you can see it in there. It's kind of hard to see that little case there. So it's grounded on these, and that's where I'm going to tie it to. The AEM net, I don't have the AEM net thing here, so I won't be using that. So what I recommend, here's the pigtail that you get, is on those wires that I'm not going to use, so the wires I'm not going to use is the green and black, white and black, and the blue. So you notice that they're actually stripped already on the ends. I'm going to cut those, and then I'm going to put heat shrink on them, because I don't like having any bare wires ever able to touch anything. You can tape them up as well, but that's what I'm going to do, because they're unused. And then these guys, these four, I will be using, and I'll show you that in a sec. So just like that. That way, there's no way they can ever touch a ground or a positive in a fuse box or whatever you're playing with. Just like to be safe. Better safe than sorry. So let's get these 4 wires done. So the 4 wires that I'm going to use, the red, the black, and the brown, which, so red, positive, black is ground, chassis ground. ECU ground is what I'm calling the, because that's where the sensor input is the brown, and that's going to where I showed you. And the white is going to be the analog positive, so that's actually going to be the signal that's coming out for logging. And that's the end of it right there. And that's going to have to go into one of the inputs on the ECU in this particular case. If you've got other wideband, however you're logging, it might go right into your standalone, it might go into something else. But basically wherever the input is for the logging software to pick up. And in this one, it's going to be the ECU. So the first thing I want to tell you is on your ECU that's in there, before you do anything, unplug it or anything, disconnect your battery. Just a good thing to do. Sometimes or most times it's probably safe not to, you can think, but you never know. Static electricity, or you short something out because there's other wires in there or pokey things or whatever, and just don't do it. So play safe and disconnect your battery, and then disconnect your ECU at that point, or do any soldering after that. It's just better be safe than sorry, because you don't want to destroy your ECU in your car. So what input am I going to use? Well, this is a wiki from ECMLink, which is the software I'm using for the logging, but I also have the circuit diagram for the ECU as well. So what I'm going to use is this EGR temperature sensor input, number 15 right here. Obviously, I don't have a California car because I'm in Canada, and this was only used for vehicles in California. And a lot of you that are modifying cars probably, if you are in California, have kind of done something that doesn't need this anymore, I'm guessing. Now, the wiki shows you a few things you can do. You can use the EGR temperature input, which is what I just showed you. You can use the IAT input, which is pin 8. You can use the barometric input, which is pin 16. If you are using your wideband to emulate the front O2, you can also use that pin and put it directly in there. Park neutral switch should be used for the clutch, by the way. And I won't talk about that in this session. So if you look at these, you've got the EGR temperature sensor, which is pin 15. You've got the intake air temperature sensor, which is pin 8 it showed you, if you want to use that. And you also have pin 16, which is the atmospheric pressure right here. I'm going to use the good old EGR temperature input, which is pin 15, which LY means it's a blue and yellow wire, and it's on pin 15. But I'll also show you on the screen too, where you can look it up on the internet, and it's got some nice drawings there that show you exactly what to use, and I'll show you where that is on the car. So, right in there, there's the ECU, and I want to get this this connector out right there. So, and then I'll splice into that. So let's get that unplugged and then tap into it. If I look at where this blue and yellow number 15 is, and there's C61 there, showing the 24-pin connector. Should be 3 over as well from that side. And if I go here, I can count 1, 2, 3. This guy right here that I pulled out. See this guy? That's the one I need to cut and tap into, going into the ECU, which is this side. The other side will just be held open because it doesn't have a connection on this side. You'll see when I'm done. So now it's connected to monitor basically for logging. And I also put a little label on here, WB for wideband, just so if anybody isn't here later, they know exactly what that should be. And if they don't know what WB is, they should never be in here in the first place. I'm going to start it, not getting into the tuning software just yet. I just want to make sure it uses a standalone gauge. If it works okay, and we're going to test it right now by doing a start. I haven't put everything together because in case there's issues, you always should do that. So let's start it up. So let's talk about how to set this gauge up in ECMLink. So this is an AEM X air-fuel ratio gauge, and what a lot of people do, I guess I'll just show you the first choice that people do. First, let's connect here. We go to, let's cancel that. Go to ECU config, and there we are. And then we're going to go to ECU inputs, and I've already selected AEM analog wideband gauge. That's usually what they kind of got presets in there for the AEM wideband. There's other AEM wideband UEGO. I've used that one too for this X series. I'm going to use this, and I'll just show you for reference how well that will log. Now, once you've got that selected and you save it, you also need to capture it in your captured values. So let's go to captured values, and you'll see that I've chose it already. So I don't think we have it here anymore here. So basically we're going to choose the AEM analog wideband, and we're going to add that to device. And now hopefully we see it in here. Here it is. So we got the raw analog. We'll be able to see it now. So we're going to hit OK. And then when we log, and let's log it now, start logging. We're going to start stream. And you can see that it's selected there. But you may not see it here. And the reason is because we haven't captured it or haven't done it as a displayed value. So let's go to displayed values. Get a little message here. And now it's, you can see where it's selected right here, right there, to display. But if you don't see it in this window, you grab it on this side, right in here, and then move it over there. So just make sure you do that so you see it. Otherwise, you won't see it. So right now it says 18:1 because the engine isn't started, so it's just kind of maxed out. So we're gonna start it. I'm just gonna start the engine here and show you how it compares. Okay, so you can see that it's 8.5. That's because it's at 8.5 and it's heating up right now. You can see as it moves up. Yeah, so now it's starting to read at 10. This should be around 10. You can see it there. And it's slowly going up. 10.5. Yeah. So it's warming up. It's a rich start. And then it'll go to lambda. So I'm just going to move that arrow out of the way so you can see it there. Right there. 10.4. And it'll come back to 14.4. And no point in letting you watch it warm up. But just so you get the idea, right now it's matching 10.3, 0.5, 6, 5, whatever. We're matching up really good. So this is probably all I need to do. I'm going to show you another thing that people do with wideband sensors and gauges that tap into logging. They can do a linear, and I'm going to set that up too just to show you how to do that as another option in case you want to do it and worrying about how the voltages and making sure that everything is as accurate as possible. So I'm just going to get it up to warmed up here and show you what that looks like. You can see our round lambda or stoic there at 14.7 approximately. You can see it's matching up there too a little bit. So yeah, I think we got it. But again, I'll show you now that I've got this kind of set up what it can do other than this. All right, I'll show you how to do the other one. So basically, this is the AEM gauge that I'm putting in, the X Series ECMLink, or however you want to say that. And make sure you have this. You can look at it probably online anyway, but here is this the values you want to put in when you change it into just a linear wideband setting on here. So let's just start doing that right now. Okay, let's go to ECU inputs. And I'm going to select here. I am going to select down here linear wideband. Okay. So I'm going to save for EGR temp, the pinout I told you about. I'm going to go to linear wideband, and I've already saved pin assignments. So let's go to captured values and find where that is. Here it is, linear wideband. Let's add that to device. And now we're capturing it. I should see it there. Let's go to OK. And next I want to edit my displayed values. And to see that, let's start with the data log. Start stream. And we don't have it, but we're going to add it. So let's go to displayed values. Get our message. And let's see if we can find that linear wideband right here. Add to display and OK. We got it right there. And we're going to go linear wideband preferences. And notice now we have voltage settings here. So I'm going to go to this, and I'm just going to go to where it says 0.5 is 8 point, she reads 8.5. So, and they also got the lambda of 0.58. And that's what shows here is that you put in lambda. So let's do that. So just find it here. For the voltage, we are going to put in 0.5. And then for lambda, we are going to put 0.58. And now we're going to do a max value, and they got 5 volts here, but you can see their max value here is 4.5 volts, and the lambda is 1.23. So let's put that value in now. So if we go 4.5, if I can do that right, I'm trying to hold the camera for you guys as well here, and let's select this to be 1.23 and hit apply. And just to show you now, we got 0.5 and 0.58 lambda, which is right there, and we've got 4.5 volts and 1.3 lambda, which is right there. And those are the corresponding numbers you should see. So let's go okay there. So I started it up. You can see we have 10.8, 10.9 to 1 on the linear line band line there. And here we've got about 10.9. Well, it's jumping around a bit now, but we're pretty close. Yeah, 10.9, 10.8. You can see it kind of jumping around there too. Now I just shut the car off and I see 11.4 in the linear wideband log, and I'm showing here 11.3. So that tells me there is a bit of an inaccuracy on these settings, which I don't think is that uncommon. So it's up to you what you want to do. What I think I'm going to do for now, and this isn't my car, so I'm just going to set it up for now for logging on the pin assignments and that, to go back to the AEM wideband gauge that I had set up, because it seemed like it was more bang on. So let's change that back. I also could kind of play around with, you know, calibrating using this as well, if I wanted to on the numbers that I assigned, but I think it was actually pretty accurate doing the AEM analog wideband. So let's just stop stream. We're going to go to the link settings here, and let's go back to AEM analog wideband gauge, save pin assignments, hit OK. Captured values, I want to capture that now, back in, we're good there. And if we go to live data log, start stream, let's go to edit, displayed values, continue. Okay, what do we want here? I think we're good actually. Oh, I don't need to do that. Okay, so you see here I got AEM analog wideband right here, gauge 11.4. Actually, it's the same thing. So okay, let's you see how it's toggling between 11.3 and 11.4 there? So I think it looks a little closer. If we go here, it's 11.31, 11.32. So it's still a little out by, we'll call it 0.1. But I think it's closer than when I use these values on just a linear wideband. But that's up to you and your discretion, what you want to play with. I'm going to leave it there for now. Okay, I also want to note too, when you're doing this, and if you're this anal about making sure it's absolutely perfect, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but when you're tuning, you're doing more than wideband O2. So a couple things I want to note on that is when when you are tuning, you're looking at all kinds of other parameters. Knock is a big one. I like to look at other things as well. I still am an old guy on EGT. I still like to look at spark plugs to see what's going on after the fact and see what that looks like too. So there's a lot going on. I also want to point out your wideband sensor, it actually is doing the average of what that exhaust gas ratio is, or air fuel ratio is, out of the exhaust gas of all 4 cylinders in this car. 6 cylinders, 8 cylinders. Ideally, you would monitor each cylinder and see which one is probably running the leanest or hottest. Every car has a leaner or hotter one. Some are quite far apart, actually, if you ever monitor them. And I think in DSMs on the 4G63, if I remember right, it's cylinder 1 is actually usually running the hottest, which means it's usually running the leanest. But down the track, when you have your wideband sensor, you know, collecting at the collector part or past the collector usually, then you're doing an average. So one of those cylinders is going to be, or maybe 3 of them could be actually higher air fuel ratio or lower, depending on which way you look at it. And so you're really doing the averages. So if you're 0.1, 0.2 out, it probably doesn't matter, because you could be having something, one cylinder is a lot leaner than the other just because of the way it is. You know, the builds are all different, the injector tolerances are different, the compression might be a little different, whatever, the flow is different. So just keep that in mind. You might be trying to get this exact, but if you do get it exact, it still doesn't mean that it's exact in all cylinders. You're doing an average. Just keep that in mind. And when tuning in, you're kind of doing a lot of different things. It's even a feel sometimes of what you're doing. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't hurt to try and get things as accurate as possible, but we'll kind of look down or upstream, I guess, of what you're actually measuring and what you might be missing on any time you're measuring anything. So just want to put that out there as a little tidbit of information to think about when you're trying to get everything exact. So I'm going to leave this where it's at right now. The tuner is not me for this car. It's a guy that really knows what he's doing. He does it a lot, and he wanted this particular wideband put in, and I'm not sure what he's going to choose to select on there, but the options are there now as far as whether he wants to, you know, do this or just do the preset values, which I'm not even sure what they are in this logging software in ECMLink, but that's where I'm going to leave it for now, and then hand it over to the owner of the car and his tuner, and they can tune away. So now we got to pack get this all back together. This was just a dry run to make sure everything worked before I put everything back to the way it needs to be after setting up and installing the wideband. So there's a complete install. You can see it just idling away there, trying to be efficient right now. You can see the, you know, it's matching up pretty good there. What that looks like, 14.9, 15, whatever. You can see it doing the same thing right there, 15, whatever. So it's tracking really good. The log's good. Definitely ready for tuning, and I think it's worked out well. We're all good to go and get this car tuned up. You can see if I just show you, you know, things cleaned up really nice under there. You don't see anything, so it's a nice install, and she's ready to go. So I think that's going to conclude this episode. Thanks so much for joining me on this, and I thought I'd just show you kind of what you do to put a wideband sensor in. Now this car is ready to go to the owner, and he'll work with his tuner to basically maximize the output of this car and do it accurately and as precisely as they can. And I know he's looking forward to that, and before summer's out, he'll have this probably just going great on the road and maybe even the track. We'll see. So thanks so much for joining me in this video. And if you want to catch the next one, if you like these sort of things, don't forget to subscribe. And until the next one, enjoy every day and always make it right.